Joined now by the great one, Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. Hello, Rick. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. Stayed up late
Uh,
watching basketball last night. Got a game to go to tonight. Seen the Hoosiers play twice. I'm ready to go. It's hoop season.
Kentucky looked pretty decent, even though they were without some guys. And because Kansas looks really good, but Kentucky looked pretty decent with the guys that they were missing.
Yeah, I mean they've got a lot of perimeter talent for sure. Guys that can shoot, guys that can get up and down the court. I know they missed a lot of threes, but put a lot of pressure on Kansas offensively and defensively. Just didn't have an answer for Hunter Dickinson because all their big guys are either injured or ineligible, but they've got a big growth curve ahead of him. It's one of his better teams in a few years, and we'll see how he develops them.
Well, we're a lot of future Indiana opponents here. Right there's one of them, Kansas coming into Bloomington, and that happens a little bit, not that far away, actually,
Right.
not that long from now. Indiana fans
There's
there's a little consternation right now, but before that happens, Indiana has a game tomorrow night against Wright State. Louisville has a game tonight against Coppin State. Both of these teams are, I hate to say it, but likely to play next Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And this has to be the least promoted IU U of L game in the history of them ever playing. Because for one thing, nobody knows it's going to happen. And if it does happen, it means both of them got beat the day before.
Yeah, and it's not local. It's in New York City, so fans won't be able to go and watch it unless they want to spend a lot of money and go to New York for the whole weekend and stay over on Monday. Yeah, I mean, both teams, considering what was expected of them, have been a little underwhelming so far. IU played okay against Florida Gulf Coast, I thought, but gave up way too many threes and never really took control of the game. I saw Florida Gulf Coast got beat by 12 or 14 by Pitt in their next game. And then Indiana looked even shakier against Army, never taking control of that game. I mean, it was an 8-point win, but it felt like a one-possession game or more most of the game, and let that kid score 20 points who didn't score any points the game before, and really had a three-pronged attack other than Renew and Xavier Johnson and Khalil Ware. Nobody else was getting them any points. So Mike Woodson needs to make some fixes offensively. The biggest thing I see is, I mean, they're giving up 13 threes a game and they're only making 4. I mean, you could get by with that when you had Trace Jackson Davis on the team, but he's not there anymore. So they need to find a way to cut back on the threes, and they need to do a better job of incorporating the threes in the offense.
Yeah, the lack of being able to defend the three right now is not the ability to play defense. It's seems to be understanding the defense.
Right.
And they're just not out on these guys. They're not closing out. They're not getting back out. They're not responding quickly. It's like they're giving courtesy defense on that. And it's like they're so intent on protecting the post. And I'm like, man, you guys have post players. Why you better focus on everybody else? And is this something you think that they can pick up on, or are these guys? This is going to be a dangerous trend.
I think they can. It takes time. You watch them play; it's very obvious. You know, they've got 3 guys starting who didn't really play a ton. Well, 2 weren't even in the program last year, and 1 didn't play a lot of minutes when it counted on defense. I'm talking about Renew, Ware, and Mbako. Yeah, they got to figure it out. It's just going to come with experience and work on it in practice and do it in games. I mean, the game they got tomorrow night's not going to be an easy game. Wright State's better than either team they played. The one thing in Indiana's favor is Wright State actually played last night. They lost at home to a good Toledo team by only 1 point. So if they don't come out and play better against Wright State, they could go up to Madison Square Garden with an L. So they got to figure it out, and they got to get more off the bench. I mean, C.J. Gunn and Caleb Banks have been in the program for over a year. They need to be like contributors. And Mike Woodson, he doesn't really seem to have a lot of trust in either one of them. In both games in the second half, he went with the lineup that won the game was the 3-guard lineup of Cups, Galloway, Johnson, Renew, and Ware, and that's what he's going with. And I mean, Cups is a freshman; he's figured it out. These other guys
Now
need to
that's what
figure
makes
it
it
out.
scary to me is a kid that is a freshman that was not this highly rated 5-star, and boy, not only has he figured it out, what he hasn't figured out, he's trying to make up for in effort.
Right.
And that is something that I think is not being seen by some other players.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to pull him along, and I don't know who the leader of the team is. I guess it's Xavier Johnson because that's the only player they sent into the post game on Sunday night, and he was critical of the team's practice habits. So it's his job as a leader to get other guys bought in, and he did. I saw him jump on some guys during the game for not doing the right rotations. It's on him and Galloway to get it figured out. They're the captains. They're the most experienced players in the system. They've been there for both years of Mike Woodson, and we always say teams that are player driven are more successful than coach driven teams because it comes from your peers, and you feel like you don't want to let your teammates down.
And of course, Mackenzie Mbako has been a topic of discussion because he hasn't played much, because he hasn't played well very much. Mike Woodson talked about not having confidence in someone, and it's been Mackenzie Mbako, especially on the defensive end, I guess, as much as anything, which a little surprising, but he has got to get a grip quickly because he was expected. A lot of people thought he was going to be the leading scorer on this team. I thought it was going to be Khalil Ware, and Khalil Ware's he's come in and he's falling into his role, and he's got some learning to do, but he's not having as much difficulty, to me, it looks like, as Mackenzie is.
Yeah, I mean, Mbako needs to play better defense. I mean, that's why he played 2 minutes in the second half against Florida Gulf Coast. I think he played 5 in the second half against Army. You can't get blown by for layups. You can't lose shooters. You got to understand the team concept, and that's going to take him a while longer because I'm sure Cups. His dad was a coach. I'm sure he's drilled and watched videos, and ever since he's been to IU, I'm sure he's been all in on what do I need to do and where do I need to be. I think he views himself as the leader of the team for the next 3 years after this, and he takes it seriously. And Mbako needs to learn that. Under Woodson and under any coach that wants to win, you got to play defense. You got to rebound, or you're not going to play. I'll say that Ware, I think, he's exceeded my expectations, considering all the knocks that were against him about effort. He plays hard. I mean, he's just one of those guys that I think he looks smooth, and he doesn't have that real dynamic body language. He's kind of calm, so people kind of interpret that sometimes as like, he's not playing that hard. He plays plenty hard. He's played well in both games. He just needs time with Cliff Marshall to get stronger, because once you get in the Big Ten, as you know, a more physical league, and there's going to be guys who are going to try and push him around. He's going to have to be able to hold his ground at both ends of the floor.
Yeah, when we get into conference play, that's going to be a test for him. It'll be interesting to see. But way before we get to that, you've got Trey Galloway. He's looked at as this glue guy, but that's all fine and well. And he had a great game a few games back. But he has to be a consistent contributor offensively, or this team is not. That's part of the reason why they're going to 3 guards, because I don't think they're getting enough out of the guard play on this team.
Yeah, I mean, it's a guard game. You got to make the other team fear that your guards can beat the opposing team, break down the defense, and get them into rotation or get into the lane and get to the rim and score, or get into the lane and dump it off for a lob. They had a couple of those when it mattered, or be a guy who can throw the ball in and then spot up on the 3-point line and make a 3. I mean, that's the problem that they have, is they don't really have if you look at Indiana's guards, they don't really have a guy that say, man, we really got to shut that guy down offensively. They don't have one. I mean, Xavier Johnson had a really good offensive game, and he did make some shots. And he made 9 out of 9 free throws, but you got to have that one dude who looks like an NBA guard, like Shafino did last year. Even though he wasn't a tremendous three-point shooter, he was a good mid-range shooter. And as you mentioned, Galloway, you can't ever question his effort. You can't question his defense, his ability, his willingness to drive and be a glue guy. But he's just not a guy who say, give him the ball and say, let's see you go make a jump shot. He's not going to drive the ball and stop, pull up, and hit a jump shot. He's going to hit a floater. He's going to try and lay it up, but he's not going to drive and hit a jump shot.
Yeah, and they've got one more game coming up before Wright State tomorrow night, before they go to New York, I mean, and that is the last chance for them to kind of get their stuff together before they head off and face a team that we know is playing well, that we know is talented, and will be more than ready. And it's a semi-quasi home game for UConn, being so close up there. So that's going to be something else.
Well, I mean, the thing is about UConn, they won the national championship last year, so their fans are all in. They're used to going to the Madison Square Garden for the Big East tournament and playing games in the Big East, which they're back in that conference. And just the basic geography, it'll probably be, I don't know, 10-1. UConn will have more fans there than Louisville, Texas, and Indiana combined.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. So, and speaking of Louisville, if things go, if Indiana's not able to get past UConn, I do not expect Louisville to get past Texas. I'll just go ahead out and predict that. And if Indiana and Louisville play, is that going to be more interesting of a game than it should have been on paper?
Well, Louisville has been struggling since the start of the season. As you know, last year they went 4-28 and lost an exhibition game. This year, it's mostly a new team. A lot of talk about how they're going to be a lot better. They won their first exhibition game against Simmons College, which is a very low-level team. Then they lost their next exhibition game to Kentucky Wesleyan, which went out then later and lost to Western Kentucky by, I think, 20 or 24. Then they beat UMBC by 1 point in their opener last week. And
is that a TV network?
That's the team that beat Virginia in the regional the one year when Tony Bennett was a 1 seed. But alarming about that was I think UMBC scored 93 or 92 against Louisville. In their very next game, they went home and scored 23 in the first half. And then they just lost to Chattanooga Friday night when they were down 21 with 6.5 minutes to play. They lost by 10, and Bellarmine went down to Chattanooga last night and led deep into the second half. And I think Chattanooga ended up winning by 6 or 8. I don't remember what it was. I think it was 8. But it's not good. And there's a lot of grumbling. Yeah, Bellarmine lost 72-64. Crowds are down, and they got Coppin State tonight. And as John mentioned when we were off camera, I think I didn't check it today yet, but Coppin State was number 360 out of 362 teams in the Ken Palm ranking, only 2 teams worse. And so they need to win this game, and they need to win it pretty decisively.